in particular. This you'll have to probably explain to our other listeners because this is a new name and I've just heard of it fleetingly. Just tell us a little bit more about this Andrew Tate and what does he stand for?
Yeah,
What
so
is it?
I guess you could call him. People got all kind of names for him, but they've got this idea of, well, there's been feminism, so they kind of have these figures now that are like, you'd say, masculinists for want of a better term, where they speak from a male's perspective of how young men should look after their mental health, or how they should approach relationships, or how they should view women. And it's very from a very it's a rejection of the feminization in society of men. And so he's kind of like very alpha and he's very from that position. And so he's become popular. He says quite controversial things, but very young men, a lot of young men are quite attracted to his message,
Can I say something?
So
As a
okay, I follow him.
Following him as well.
Who has been following him?
I've been following Andrew Tate.
Oh,
so
right.
there are women who follow him because I don't believe in all his ideologies. Some of them are too extreme, but some of the things I do like because I feel that I agree that men have become sort of feminized in a way. They just don't know how to be a man anymore. It's all about the woman and the women's rights and whatever. And I don't think it's done our men much good, I have to say. So I can see, rightly or wrongly, why he's got quite a strong following. Because look, I'm a black woman and I'm listening to him. That's strange. It sounds weird. So yeah, that's all I can say.
Interesting. Yeah. Let's bring in other people who are on the line. Right. We have a John. John, would you like to reveal yourself? And Emma and Kai. Would you like to join the conversation?
Oh, 1 second.
Yeah, sure. Emma, would you like to show yourself? Kai? Then we have Marilyn. Marilyn, is your surname Dennis? I don't think it is. Right. Let's just bring... Oh, sorry. What's going on here?
Sorry about that. My camera's playing up, but
yeah, good to hear from you. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. Good evening, Mr. Mayers. How you doing?
I'm well.
Long time no speak. It's an ex-girlfriend of yours.
Oh, okay. It's a bit of a surprise.
Big time. It's John Williams here, mate.
Oh, yes, Jay. What are you saying? You okay?
I'm good.
Good.
Did you say your camera's not working, John?
It's not for some reason.
Oh, what a shame. Okay.
Yeah, but so like Hugh was saying, is that a lot of the kind of role models we did have back in the day would have been the strong black men that you had your families, and it was always the men you look up to, but obviously the dynamics were always, mum and dad both worked. That's how it was. It wasn't the case of, you do as I say. It's a case of, we've got bills to pay. This is how we do it. So it was a case of, you kind of look at certain things. It's like, okay, this is what it is. We're about progress. We want to progress as much as humanly possible, because back then, you think, your wages weren't that great. And as Huey alluded to, is the fact that, the wages weren't great. And, a lot of our parents could barely read or write.
Mm.
But what was so amazing about that generation was people looked at them as being not very clever, but you're not very clever, but you have, rent parties to pay rent. Okay, you've got children here, you might have children back home, and you still manage to send money to them. And these are people that aren't very bright, really.
It's 5 shillings used to go a long way back then.
Oh, it did. Trust me. Don't forget about the paraffin heater and them thing there. You know what I mean? Oh yeah.
And the partner money, and the part, as you said, people were considered not academic and intellectual, but they had partner. Somehow the dots joined up, right? The dots joined up.
Partner's still running today.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm a member of a partner.
Yeah,
I got my hand this month.
All right. But you see, that's the thing. I mean, we were fortunate that, you know, we were that generation that we started to get our foot in the door. We started to, you know, you know, understand more about the twice as hard syndrome. And, you know, I've passed that down to my kids now. And one child is currently in Qatar teaching, and the other one just finished at Birmingham Uni. I've been married, this year will be 25 years.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah. You know, and at the end of the day, as a black couple, you know, it's a case of, you know, the same thing again. You know, we keep it moving. You know what I mean? It's that we're
How
there
do
for
you
the
keep
kids.
it moving? What's the dynamics? What's the magic recipe?
To tell you the truth, it's the fact that we appreciate that what everybody's different. The fact that, you know, I've got a weird sense of humor. You know, she's the one that's more focused. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's a case of we balance each other out, but it's a case of like when it came to the kids, it was all about the kids. You know, with school, we were on them. You know what I mean? It's a case of look, playgrounds for playing, classrooms for learning. You know, if your friends then want to mess about, that's on them because we weren't taught that, you know what I mean, being smart is cool.
So where do you think you got your role models from, John?
Well, definitely, you know what, you learn a lot from school, as Huey will tell you, learn a lot from school, but then it's also the people around you, you know, so because when we were coming up, our village was our cousins. Do you know what I mean? And 9 times out of 10, you would have the father and the mother, you know, and you know, you'd have the odd single parent here and there, but it wasn't seen as a thing. It's just a case of, you know, you're just getting on and raising your child. That's it. You know, there's
Yeah,
no.
that's true. Actually, I have to say, when I grew up, I being a single parent wasn't something that was common. I don't remember
No.
ever seeing it
And
in
you know,
my peer group at all.
yeah. But the thing,
Everybody
yeah.
had strong parents, and the moment you crossed the threshold when you got home from
Mm,
school, you're an English child in the
mm,
classroom, but the minute you crossed the threshold, you became a child of West Indian parents, and you lived by those principles.
well, that was it.
Yeah, yeah, indeed.
Yeah, it was. It's, you know, so I think what happened. One thing I want to hit on though is that, and I think it's been brought up, and I think you said it. I think where it's all about, we've had this thing about independent women where it's like, well, I've got this and I've got that. What you bring into the table, because it
Yeah.
seems like a lot of women are missing out on good men because guess what? Oh, he don't earn as much as me. Oh, he doesn't this. Oh, he doesn't that.
Mm,
It's not
mm,
about what you earn, it's who you are. There's people
indeed.
that might earn more than you and will treat you like dirt.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. I have to say, when I had my service soul to soul, I would take people through about a 2 to 3 hour assessment
Mm,
process, really digging deep about the key values, what it is that they're looking for in their ideal partner. And I have to say, many of them, in terms of their responses, were very, in my view, superficial.
yeah.
And it was based on income. It was based on whether or not he wore white shoes or black shoes or whatever. And, you know, when you're really digging deep and you're trying to find the ideal partner for someone, it's got to be so much more than he's got to earn more than I do. You know, because at the
Mm,
end of the day, there are many, many successful people out there who bring in huge amount of money, but they're single and alone and sad. And they have to get past the fact that it's unlikely that their partner will earn the same or more, but it doesn't make them a lesser man.
no.
So, you know, having those conversations are quite challenging if you are trying to support someone to find the ideal mate. Sorry,
Mm,
Mary, you got your hand up.
Yeah, I wanted to make the point that John made about well, first of all, my parents were married for 50 years. So I was, and interesting thing is, I often say to people, I'm one of nine. So myself and my younger brother were born here. The rest of my brothers and sisters, all seven of them, were born in St. Lucia. Similarly, I had that Windrush situation where my parents, one came and then sent for the other and then sent for the kids. So I'm one of those, myself and my younger brother are two Brits and my other brothers and sisters are St. Lucian, but we're all one. So I often say to people, well, I've got 9 brothers and sisters for the same parents. And the look of surprise on their faces, just like, oh, all 9 kids for the same parents. I said, well, yeah, we've all got the same parents. We're same mum and dad, 9 kids. But going back to the point about, I think John said something about affairs or something. My 20-year marriage broke down because my husband had an affair. And so, but when I first met my husband, I had a mixed race child. So he's of Jamaican heritage, and his family was of, what, you're going out of a woman who's had a child for a white man? And it was, they gave me hell, but because I had a mixed race child. 20 years on, 10 years later after we got divorced, who does he go and marry? A white woman. And do you know what that man's got the audacity to say? You see them black women? They're too much hard work. And you know what he even said? He said to my daughter, she is black. He said to my daughter once, if Harry had married a white woman, he wouldn't be going through what he's going through now with Meghan and all that trouble. And you know what? I'm just like, I cannot believe it. And just to say, I invited Pauline to this call because Pauline and I are historic friends and social work. When I decided to leave banking and go into and retrain as a social worker, Pauline, please remind them what my husband Robert said, because I met Robert through Pauline because their families were Jamaican. Tell them what he said.
Rob, her ex-husband, we met up, and he said he was worried about her educating herself and going to university.
Oh dear.
But by then I was a single parent, successful, a woman. He said, I don't want her to turn out like you, because you obviously don't like men. And I don't want Mary to be an ultra feminist and hate men. And I said, that's not about that. I assured him it was not about that. And I said, I'm single, not because I hate men. I love men. You know, I have a good positive role. I just haven't met the right person. You know, I've never been anti-black men, definitely black men in any case, never, ever, because I've had positive experiences around me in my family and whatever. But I was touched by that, and I did share that with Mary, that he had this fear that she would change. We all change through everything. That's the thing. Yeah.
That's a bit of a shock.
It's surprising sometimes how men see things, and as I grew as a person and as a social worker, I became a magistrate, and the more I grew, the further apart we grew. And in the end, in order to empower himself, he decided to go and have an affair, and then all what we built up, and we built up quite a bit, destroyed. And then I went off to live in St. Lucia, and then he turned around and said, oh, you know what? Mary had, because I wasn't here to defend myself, he turned around and said, Mary had an affair and she ran off to St. Lucia, and
oh dear. He
nothing went like that.
Turned it all on you.
He turned it all on me because I wasn't here. I didn't care. As far as I'm concerned, the marriage is over. Let's just go our separate ways. And so I continued to grow. And as I continued to grow, he still resented it. Wow. So
yes. You left him way behind. Oh,
it's hard work. So I hear you, John, and I admire. If Robert and I had tried to work it out, we'd still be married now. But I was shocked when I saw him get married to a white woman. And when I don't know how he can say these things to his only daughter, his only birth child, to say black women are too much hard work. And that's why he went and married a white woman this time round. I'm just like, yeah, that's
a shame, a real shame. So,
right. That's the slide. The slide was about power struggles, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that certainly illustrates one in terms of the dynamics and you basically outgrowing him as your own personal development flourished. In a way, you remind me of me in when I was married 30 years ago. I outgrew my ex-husband quite quickly in terms of my desires, my academic success. And he was constantly threatened by that, asking, what do you need to go to university for? What do you need this level of academic knowledge? What are you going to do with it? And it's like, well, who knows? And obviously I've gone on to do bigger and greater things, and I don't really know where he is or what he's up to. It's not relevant. It's not relevant anymore. But yeah, as women, as we grow, the role of masculinity sometimes is irrelevant because we have to still pay the bills. You know, sometimes we're wearing the skirt and the trousers, and we have to be vulnerable and kind and nurturing for our children. Yet we also have to wear the trousers in the workplace, get things done. So there is a bit of a dichotomy there for women who want to achieve. We don't want to, this, what your Mary's ex-husband was saying about us being hard work. We're not hard work. We're hard workers, but we're not hard work. So I think it's about capturing some of that. But I want to look at emotional availability, because in terms of emotional intelligence, which is a relatively new term, I think it's only come into being in the last is it in the 70s? From what I remember, Hugh, you'll have to put me right.
No, I'm saying I haven't heard it before. I haven't seen anything where it's quoted before that. Late early 80s at best for myself.
Yes. It's a relatively new term, and it's about, for those that don't know or those that do know, you'll have to correct me if I'm incorrect. It's about tapping into a level of emotional intelligence where you see your partner in terms of their behaviors through an emotional lens. And it's about, more of it's about give and take and how we view our partnerships and how we communicate the language of intelligence through the way that we behave, which is essentially the basis of any relationship. So if you're going to have a good one between Black men and Black women, I think from what my experience and understanding is, what Black men hear from Black women tends to be a language that doesn't support them. And quite often when you are listening to debates, a lot of Black men will say things like, she doesn't understand me. And you ask, well, why are you going out with a white woman, for example? Why are you dating out of your culture? They will say things along the lines of, because, and we've mentioned this before, Black women are hard work.
Stereotype.
Yeah, it's stereotyping, but I mean, I genuinely think they believe it. So in addition to the stereotyping, they're saying it because they believe it. And they say they're too this and they're too that and they're too that and they're too this. And all this sort of language is very derogatory. It's not about inspiring the language that says, I am proud of her because she's achieving all of these things. Isn't my woman amazing? They're resenting, the language suggests that they're resenting the achievements of their Black sisters. I asked, I was thinking about...
Can I throw something in there? Can I throw something in there?
Yeah, of course.
And this is where I think we're us from the diaspora, African descent, right? But where we might be different, or where we've had an influence from America. What I've observed in American popular culture is that as the image of Black women rose, with programs like Oprah Winfrey, I don't know if anybody would agree with whatever, but or even shows that Black people were on it, even if it wasn't a Black show like Ricky Lake, but some of those shows from the 80s, they did seem to pull down the image of Black men while Black women were on the rise. So I think that there was a fear that if Black women's gonna be successful, she might use her power. Now she's empowered. It's not gonna empower the family. Like, hey, I was on 50 grand and now she's gone up to 75. So that means we're a 125 family. So good, you keep going, I'll keep pushing. It's not seen like it's like, oh, she's gone ahead of me. Because the fear is that, oh, she's going to turn back now and use that power to say, hey, don't speak in this house with that too much bass in your voice because I'm the one that brings the check in, or, this type of thing. So I think there's a fear, whether it was actualized, but I don't know if there was a kind of image that was coming from Black America that influenced us over here in the UK from Caribbean background. I don't know what anybody thinks about that, how relevant that is, or that wasn't part of it.
Well, they always say that if we here in England sorry, if the Americans sneeze, we in England get the cold.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think you're quite right in terms of behaviors, because a lot of the media, even the films, everything that we watch is all American driven. Even when I try to do the research for much of the challenges around Black couples and behaviors, the papers that are written academically are all American based.
Mm-hmm.
There are very, very few, I can count with one hand how many studies have been done on Black British couples. It's all American. And I ever wondered why is no one investing in the Black British couple or Black individuals in relationships? Are we not worthy of being studied? Why has well-known sociologists not taken the mantle and invested in looking at the way Black individuals behave and come up with some theories about how we can support ourselves in our communities? Virtually everything that I have seen or researched, it's got an American author. It's all based around American couples.
I'd agree with that. And what's frustrating with that is because I think I read somewhere saying, there's a lot of these statistics are not available because Black people in the UK numerically, it's not the same as America. But if I want to look up stuff about knife crime and Black men, I will find stuff about England. So our numbers don't seem to be a problem for you to want to research that. When it's anything to do with crime and deviance and school exclusion, there's all the literature you want to find. But when it comes to marriage statistics, divorce, and papers written around these type of issues to do with Black people in the UK, it's very, very slim. So I hear what you're saying. We do need to see some research kind of like start to surface. Desperately needed.
I'm going to leave that to you because I think you're the perfect person to get off the ground, Hugh.
I got a new crusade.
I want to see your next paper in Psychology Today.
Speak it into existence, right? We'll speak it into existence.
Indeed. Brilliant. So in terms of emotional intelligence, does anybody want to say anything further about that in terms of its practical applications in the communication of how we feel in our relationships and the dynamics of what tends to throw up? Anyone? Let's invite Emma. Emma, you there? Maybe she's not. John, are you still with us? I've got Novelette. Novelette, are you with us? It'd be really nice to hear from you guys. If you're with us, do switch your camera on. It'll be good to hear from you. Okay. So this is going to be certainly a hot topic. We looked at infidelity. And I think it goes without saying there is a certain level of cultural acceptance in our community when infidelity occurs. In fact, I'd almost say that people will say it's no big thing. What do you expect? Mary was talking about being one of 9, all from the same biological parents, which I have to say is great, but unusual. And even my dear mother, bless her soul, when she was getting, she suffered with Alzheimer's towards the end. But even before she started to lose her memory, her biggest fear, because they retired back to Jamaica, to not the town where she grew up, but to the other side of the island. Her biggest fear was that my father had fathered other children that she wasn't aware of, and that they would come out of the woodwork on his death and claim all her assets. So that was one of her biggest fears, that, I can't trust your father. Even though they were married for 62 years, towards the end of her days, she really was very, very concerned that there could be other siblings that we weren't aware of. And my father was an absolutely lovely man. I couldn't see it happening. And no one did come out of the woodwork, I'm pleased to say, when he passed on. The 4 children that he bore were the 4 children that were at his graveside when he passed. So yeah, there are some cultural norms, and I think they are particular to the African and African Caribbean community. And Mary, I'll be with you in a second. There are some cultural norms. I would say that some of my African girlfriends whose partners have played away and where they've witnessed their own fathers commit infidelity, there is an expectation that at some point in the relationship that it will happen. And for as long as the wife is not aware or the mother is not aware, they're happy for it to take place as long as the father doesn't rub or make it clear that that is what he's up to. And obviously, if that's going to take place within the relationship itself, it's likely to have problems around whether or not you want to be intimate with this person, because if he's playing away and not being protective, they carry things into the relationship. And I heard a very, very sad story from someone that I met recently who suffered with such bad pelvic inflammatory disease that she herself could never go on to have children because her partner was infecting her time and time again, and they were too proud to go to the clinic and get screened. So she was carrying gonorrhea for years and years and years, and it was her partner that was infecting her time and time again. And one of the other things around timeliness, now we do seem to have our own clock. And when I say clock, I mean, we all live by the GMT? Yeah.
Greenwich Mean Time.
No, BMT, British.
Black Man Mean Time. BMT. My bad.
No, there is one that has developed in our community called the Black Man Time, BMT, but we all follow GMT, isn't it? So one would assume that why the 2 timelines can't connect is another matter. But anyway, we'll talk about that as time goes on. So Mary's got her hand up. Please come in, Mary. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I wanted to say, when we talk about cultural norms, after my marriage broke down, I went to live in the Caribbean. So I went to work and live in St. Lucia. And I was absolutely astounded how accepting women were of infidelity and, as long as he comes back home to me, I don't really care. And exactly. Then I got to learn that relationships were based on economics. They weren't based on love. And I had a real struggle because women were like, they were predators. They would predate your partner if he seems to have something, particularly if you seem to be having something, a lifestyle that they haven't got. They would go after your man. And because Solutions speak patois, but they didn't know that I understood patois because my mum used to speak French, which is French Creole for us. So I understand French Creole. So when they were sitting there plotting in bars, and I just sit there listening and thinking, I cannot believe these people. But you're women, you're supposed to be supporting each other. In the Caribbean, it's a whole different game. And I lived there for 15 years, and I was just astounded how women go after women, and they don't care as long as they are okay, or if they have a husband and he's playing away, I don't care as long as he comes home and he pays the bills. I don't care. How can you not care? And then they're dying of heart disease, all kinds of ailments, which are all emotional because they hold it all inside. And then it's amazing. And it was the 15 years I lived in the Caribbean was a real eye-opener for me. And obviously having experienced infidelity, I was just like, that ain't happening to me. I'm not going to put up with that. I don't care. That's the culture here. It's not happening to me. I'm not sharing that.
Interesting. Hugh.
Yeah, I definitely want to speak about this one. Not that I'm an expert as such, but at least not personally. But what I would identify in terms of cultural norm is that even amongst I'm school of, say, 84. I left school in 1984, so you've got an idea of how old I am. But many
You're
appear.
a baby, Hugh. You're a babe. I left school in the 70s.
Wow. Wow. I'm giving the game away. But I'm saying many people that I grew up with, they had brothers or sisters. So there's a phenomenon in the Caribbean community of those older siblings that we didn't know, or we didn't know of. You had an older brother. Oh yeah, my dad was married before, or whatever. Or my mum had. Well, we got older siblings in the Caribbean, but also the thing of having a little sister or a younger brother, but your parents are still married, and you got a brother that's, your parents be married 25 years, 35 years, but somehow you got an 8-year-old brother. And so many people had that, and mums made it work. They found a way to make it work. But it was common amongst the men of that generation. If that was their Achilles heel, if they didn't smoke weed and carry a knife and do all certain sort of antisocial behavior, the one thing from that Windrush generation that cropped up with the men was the children. Oftentimes it was fidelity was their Achilles heel.
So could I ask, did you, as peers, what was the views of other Black men in terms of acceptance? What were the thoughts? Did you and your peers go, it's almost like congratulating them, like, well done on getting yet another one? Or don't you need to, or was the question, shouldn't you be thinking about that a little bit more in terms of what you're doing? Because
no, when I say peers, I mean in a sense of speaking to a friend that they too might have a younger sibling, or they found out that their dad had a child back in Jamaica. He's always going back to build his house that never got built. But where's your dad? He's gone long in it. Yeah, he's building his house. But really, he had like, I'm trying to say, a baby as well as having a wife. It was almost like polygamous. It was almost like, and I speak to different people from Africa, and then there's something similar, where their dad's building a house back in Nairobi or some other part of Africa, but he's always there 4 or 5 months at a time. But this house hasn't finished yet. And he's been building it for like 23 years. It's like brick by brick. He's doing 1 brick a year or something, because this house isn't going up. It isn't finished. So yeah, and there is something. So that's been going on. That has been, but as I said, it almost to the point of it being like polygamous as opposed to an affair. It's like that's of a woman.
Yes. Yeah. And we in our family, we had some personal experience of that. And it was just hush hush. I mean, it only really came to light in my 40s, that these activities, because I put my father on a huge pedestal, and I thought my dad would never get involved in something like that. And actually, the truth was very different, and it was very difficult for me to come to terms with. But I think in our culture, I wonder why we as women put up with it. What is it about us as within our culture? Why are we expected to almost enable our men to behave like that? Why are we giving our men so much bandwidth from decades? This is generation after generation. And people will say things like, well, it goes back to slavery days. Yeah, well, that was what, 150 years ago? How many generations have moved on since then?
That was a long time ago, That was
exactly. And I think, yeah, okay, there was a pattern that was built up back in the day. But surely 150 years later, why are we within our community, never mind in our relationships, why are we in our community not sort of frowning upon that and sort of saying, I had colleagues who, when I left school and came back and embarked upon them, a couple of them said to me, I would have loved for you to have my children. And I'm thinking, do I look like a baby breeding machine? I was like, what do you mean by that? And they were like, I would have loved for you to have carried my child. And I'm thinking, no, that's not something that I would ever get involved with unless I was having a relationship with you. And someone said to me, that is you shouldn't see that as an offense. It's actually that guy considers you to be so worthy as a woman to want to carry his children. And I'm thinking, but he's already got half a dozen elsewhere. What the hell does he need me to be carrying his child for?
He's seen a lot as worthy then, hasn't he?
Pardon?
He's seen a lot of women as worthy.
Indeed, indeed. My argument would be you can go and sire as many children as you like. That is your biological right. But the level of responsibility that goes with parenting is very different. Now, I can't see when a man is having children all over the show and they're of a relatively similar age, how he can be at the school gates. How can he be at the school gates dotted all over different times? And how can he have an impact on that child as it grows up when he doesn't have the time or the bandwidth or capacity to be involved in that child? Mm-hmm. People say, oh, he's a good dad. Well, yeah, he may well be when he's around, but when he's not around, someone else has got to pick up those pieces. So invariably, it'll be the woman or the partner with whom he's had that child. So she then has that huge amount of responsibility and just picking up the crumbs from when he's got the time to appear. But the main parenting still has to go on. You know, if you're the main parent, you don't have a day where you say, I can't be bothered to get up today. I can't be bothered, because you don't have the luxury of not being bothered. But the absent parent who dips in and out because they've got children all over the show has that luxury. So I want to know, why do we, within our communities, why do we accept it? And what do we need to do about it? Pauline.
I see Pauline's hand.
I just want to say, I've had a similar experience, Sarah. I've had men who've got like 10, 11 children. In fact, when I was 16, around 15 years old, the school I went to was predominantly black, the comprehensive school, and many of the young girls had very low self-esteem and no direction. And I'm looking back on it now, I think they had a lot of issues at home, parents and whatever. But children, young girls at then were getting pregnant left, right and centre at 15, 16. And I knew as a young person that wasn't going to be me, you know, for I had my head straight. Now, I can remember when I was about 16, I was coming from a youth club, and there was this young man, he was a young boy, about a little bit older than me, very handsome, incredibly handsome. And I remember him coming up to me and saying, I'd love you to have my baby. Oh. And I was like, what? So, you know, I remember saying to him, no, I've got better things in my life to be doing. But there was a group of us as girls, and the girl behind me, I don't even know what she looked like, she said, I'll have your baby. Oh. And do you know, 9 months later, she had his baby.
Wow.
So I met him recently, just a few years ago, and he now has 11 children, different baby mothers. And he said, you know, it's a shame you didn't have my child. Even then he was saying, no, you know, but I think women don't put up with that. I just wanted to say, not all black women put up with that, not all young women, because I was 15, 16, and I wasn't going to get caught. That was my peer group. It was all around me. But I didn't, you know, as a teenager, I wasn't, because my friends were doing it, or girls I went to school with. I knew where I was going. I knew I had a direction in my life, and common sense was telling me, you have a baby at 15, 16, or even, you know, a bit older. How are you going to feed that child? How are you going to provide for that child? And those boys at the time, are they able to provide? No, they're not going to be able to provide. Now, there are women now who are single, and men may think, or they're single because they can't find a man, or they're single because they don't like men, or they're single because they're professional women earning a lot of money. It's nothing to do with that. It's that we have high self-esteem and we know our worth, and we're not going to put up with it. So there's many women who are single because of those high self-esteem.
Yeah, indeed, indeed. Yeah, and the other thing is what I found was certainly from eavesdropping on some of the conversation that these guys were having, there was a level of almost bravado in terms of the numbers of children that they had managed to create. And there was almost like if they said, the guys that I went to school with, in my view, are educated by the same standards that I was, and we had a reunion a few years back, and when I met with them, when they told me the number of children that they'd sired, I was like, whoa, you've been busy. You've been incredibly busy. And they were like, oh, I could hear them saying, you only got 5? Well, I got 6 and I got 7. And I'm like, you're talking about human beings here in the numbers that you were relating to. And I'm like, I'm saying to them, are you still with the same child's mother? Oh, no. And there was all this sense of bravado around the numbers of children that they had. I found it fascinating, but also a part of me was really disappointed because I thought you've had access to sex education, access to sexual health clinics and all the activities that I have, and still yet you've managed to create quite a number of human beings for which you can't manage. You're not in a position to support.
Zora, can I say that I'll just throw this in. There's going to be some people who had relationships, had a connection, lived together, whatever, was committed of some sort, whatever, married, whatever the case may be, but there's a relationship in place. They have a child, and then things don't work out after a number of years. There's those type of situations, but you're going to have, which happens in all communities, but maybe in our community a little bit too much, right? Where people have unresolved emotional issues. And just like how somebody might smoke or drink or, like have certain addictive behavior, some people use relationships and sex as a kind of way of trying to self-soothe. And so that's why you will find men, sometimes you'll find men with like children dotted around the place. And they haven't really had a relationship with the mom. These are not failed relationships. These are men that are fathered children in different situations where they didn't really, they were sleeping with that person, but they wasn't engaged and committed to that person. So there's something else going on emotionally in that respect. And then obviously on the flip side, it's the kind of a codependency. That's how I'm seeing it, because what will make a woman know this guy? I mean, I've seen a clip of Ninja Man, and this is a very old clip, so God knows he must have more children now, but there's a clip where he's going around on social media and he's saying, like, he's been interviewed and the journalist says to him, so how many children do you have? And he said, 23 children, 22 baby mother, real bad man. Like, as a celebration. And I'm convinced that, all right, he's famous and stuff like that, but I mean, what would make a woman know, all right, I'm going to be like baby mama 15? At what point, like, oh, how many kids you got? Oh, I got 10 kids, 10 different moms. All right, then. So when do you want to meet up then? We'll go to the wine bar later. Well, they were happy to be number 11 and number 12. Like, so it's, there must be some sort of codependency going on, because it's not like these guys are keeping their children secret. So there's more to it. There's more to it.
Like a pride in terms of how, that's what I was saying, some of the guys that I'd bumped into after a number of years, it's almost like a badge of honor, and like you say, they weren't hiding it. It was like, whoa, you've been busy, very busy.
But Marilyn was asking, why did I feel the need to explain the fact that I've got 3 children for 3 different men? But I always explain for those exact reasons, because the assumption is, oh, she's got 3 kids for 3 different men. Why, she must be. But no, hold on a second. I had my first child at 18. I had my second child 10 years later, and I said I will never have a child again unless I'm married. I was married for 20 years, a child from that marriage. 16 years later, I'm divorced. I go and work and live in the African Caribbean before I get pregnant at 43. So I explain it because it sounds bad, but when you look at the timeline, it wasn't irresponsible. And that's the reason why, Marilyn, I always have to qualify, because I'm like, don't you be thinking, because there's an assumption that, oh, she's got 3 kids for 3 different men, she must be slack.
Mm,
And we know, and we just be honest, we know what our culture's like. Where we can be judgment. Even if somebody ain't gonna say, they're in under their breath, they're saying,
yeah.
So you gave context though.
Yeah. Anyway, we've only got 15 minutes left. So Hugh and I, well, mostly Hugh put together some tips for what we consider to be the success of relationships that you might find challenging at the moment. And one of the first tips Hugh recommends is, perhaps you'd like to go through it.
Oh, why not?
Yeah,
so I was suggesting that it's very helpful. It's not the be all, it's not the end all, but these are just, if you find it helpful or you're willing to give it a try, you could find it helpful. But building a love map together is really important. It can be helpful, right? Because it allows you to learn about your other half psychological world, right? His or hers history, worries, stresses, joys, and hopes. It's a way of bringing you closer emotionally, like you really understand each other. Because sometimes people are together and there's communication, but there's so much that people miss. And so when conversations are had, when there's challenge and disagreement, sometimes we don't understand where that person's coming from, and we can make assumptions and presumptions. So the more that we know this person and what's going on for them, their hopes, desires, stresses, worries, whatever the case may be, it gives us more context and closeness to them. So that's one point that I wanted to.
If you do that, in the reality, I mean, that sounds brilliant, but it's a very academic term, isn't it? A love map.
Yeah.
Would that be demonstrated, for example, through, going like a date night? Could you use a date night to start building your love map again?
A date night is an ideal way, but even better than that is travel. If you want to get to know somebody, travel. And travel doesn't always mean, like the whole £1,000 to the Caribbean sort of trip. It could even mean getting a couple of nights out of your city to the coast or wherever, but some kind of travel and like turning the television off, getting away from the electronic apparatus and going for a walk by the sea or a walk in the woods or in nature and stuff like that. Something like that. And those things build, when you travel, you get to know people better and you can build up. It's about building that bond, isn't it? It's about strengthening that bond. That's I guess where I was coming from. Because you're right. Love map can sound a bit formal, like we're going to get a whiteboard out after dinner and start.
Can I just interject there?
Sounds like a business world type of move, isn't it?
If I may just interject. Now, I've been back here 7 years from St. Lucia, and I just wanted to say, I have for the first time started to show an interest in developing a new relationship. Now, I met this guy, really nice, educated, bright, and everything else, and we were texting each other first. And then we got on the phone and we had this conversation. So I was saying to him that I was divorced and la. I was really interested in this guy until he said this to me. Well, I've been divorced 2 times. I've got 3 children. 2 of them are 13 and 12 and 13. I've got a 22-year-old. And I'm just like, hold on, you're 56. You've been divorced twice. You've got 3 kids. My light bulb just went off. Poof, just like that.
Why
and
that?
I was really interested in him. He's a good-looking guy. He does biking, he does walking, he does all the things that I was interested in. As soon as I heard about his history, that was it. So his love map, just as soon as we put the pin on the map, I was just like out of there.
What was it? I mean, it sounds, I can't see any red flags in what you've just said. So what was it that you saw that worried you?
I think selfishly, because I've got 3 kids and I'm just coming out, my son's nearly 8, my last child's nearly 18. First of all, I thought, I don't want to have a man who's got 13, 14, 12 and 13-year-old, 2 ex-wives that he don't get on with, and all that acrimony and having to fight for attention. I want your attention. At my age now, having done that long relationship, I want a relationship that's going to invest in me. I'm not going to be there refereeing you and your ex-wife, and you having to pick up your child and take them to school and this and that, and I have my child every other weekend. So sometimes our histories, our love maps, when you start hearing about it, their histories, worries, stresses, and joys, and I'm like, oh, sorry, I'm not interested. Is that
So
selfish?
it's realistic. You're being honest about what you want. I guess you're not. It's not like you're judging him to say that he's done
No.
anything wrong because you have 3 children. He has 3 children. It's not a crime. But you're saying it sounds like you're saying where you are in your life that wouldn't work for you. And that sounds fine because it's going to be a problem if you try to suppress that and go and surge ahead because of his good looks, right?
No, yeah, and no.
It's going to that's going to that problem is going to reemerge, right? So it's better that you park it before you guys.
Yeah,
There's almost an anticipation that him having a youngish family would have an impact, and it may well be that his scenario works really well and that he has little involvement in them, which would affect your relationship. And I don't know if you've jumped ship too soon, but you clearly know what you want, which is great. And you've almost got a crystal ball and you could foresee the challenges and you thought, I'm out of here now. But I do hope that it was the right decision for you both, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I thought it was a bit, it possibly could be selfish of me, but I'm just like, I'm going to be honest with my age. I'm not. I'm 61. I'm not interested in parenting 13-year-old children, and you got to pick up your child and have your child for the weekend, and I can't see you this weekend, Mary, because I've got to go and pick up the kids and tra la 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 la. I'm just not interested at 61 to be doing that.
Is there anyone on the call who feels that they could use something like a love map to re-engage with their partner and add a bit of spice to their relationship, get to know their partner a bit more? Marilyn, are you still with us?
Yeah, I mean, I think where it comes maybe, and this maybe ties into the emotional intelligence side, because that whole piece around self-awareness and being willing to know who you are and what's important to you and all of those sorts of things is important. And then once you know thyself, you can then have the capacity to be more interested and receptive to and adaptable to the person that you're with. So for me, it kind of fits with that a bit. And I know there are some very fun looking and innovative things you can do. I think one of them was called the jar, where there are some certain things in the jar, and on date night, or I don't know, Wednesday night when the kids are at sports day or whatever it is, you pick something from the jar, open it, and whatever you've picked is the thing that you will either do immediately or you will put into the mix. So yes, there are definitely fun and interesting ways, I think, to keep things alive. And like you said earlier, Zora, people will change and grow and evolve as well. So sometimes you could end up with not the person you first met X number of years ago, but you could be with someone who is now different because their interests or worldview or something like that has changed. And so those sorts of things I think will be useful for keeping abreast, keeping up to date with the person as they grow. And of course there are decisions to be made, because sometimes people will grow in a direction you're not interested in, but I'd say all good things to be kind of aware of, thinking about and doing.
Yeah, you're quite right. And I think even in established relationships that appear to be going well, even because of its longevity, there is it doesn't mean necessarily to say, sorry, I get my words right, it doesn't mean to say that they actually know each other. There is a period of time where when they originally got engaged or came together, that level of interest was there. But I think just a level of routine, and this is where I think when separations arise, because that level of interest and relearning about their partner can often interfere and fade.
As I would call that investment. When you invest in something, you get a return on it. But sometimes people, they get in long-term
That's a very financial approach.
No, some people, they get into long-term relationships and they're on wash, spin, and repeat. You know, that kind of autopilot and just sort of sailing through. But I honestly believe to be successful, you need some presence. You need to be present and mindful. That's and stuff like that, and investing in quality time and things like that. So
I would totally agree.
Love that would speak to that.
So you also talked about being kind and gentle, which
yes,
sounds
only because of time. No, the reason I want to emphasize the kind and gentle is because it's easy for that to slip. And what I mean is that particularly in times of disagreement or conflict, you have to be aware and consider how you communicate with your significant other, because there's a reason why I'm communicating, to let you know, for example, where I'm coming from, how I experienced something, how your behavior impacted me. But if I'm not aware of how my behavior is impacting you, I could say in such a dominant and angry way, I've put you in flight, fight, or freeze syndrome. And in terms of you understanding what I'm really saying, your understanding has gone down now, because your cortisol levels has gone up, and you're only really trying to get your own back, or, you know, we're now in a fight. So it becomes kind of counterproductive. It's not just about being nice, but it's not even pragmatic. I'm just ventilating. This is where we go and speak to our friend and ventilate with our friend and say, can you believe what she said, bro? Do you know what she... And you ventilate somewhere else. But when you want to speak to your lady or vice versa, you know, be mindful of how you're approaching the situation if you're looking to get a particular outcome.
Positively, hopefully.
Yeah, if you want a positive outcome. Next one is to focus on what you need from the other person and less on the what you don't want and what you don't like, or, you know, what you got an issue with. And what I mean is that there's a way of stating, like, I'm going to give you a scenario. So the man in the relationship spends a lot of time at work and does a lot of overtime and, you know, a lot of late nights. Now, it's better, more pragmatic research. John Gottman Institute, you know, they've got information on this. And they talk about, if the wife says, for example, I like it when you know, take the time out and we get these evenings where we can snuggle up on the sofa or go out for a meal. I really like that. If she says that, he's more likely to bank that, log that, and respond to that. But if she says, you know something, you're kind of selfish, you know, I've noticed on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, you did the late nights, then you went to your friend's event on the Saturday, you know, like, and you catalog all the things that he's done that you don't like, it's not gonna necessarily direct him toward that quality even that you might want. And it works the same way in terms of how men approach women as well. If you kind of speak in terms of all the things that she did that irritated you or you didn't like, you're losing, you know, the impact. So you just name the thing that you want and what that person does that you really appreciate. It's just an effective way of communicating. It's just people don't get as defensive.
Can women do that without appearing to be demanding?
No, I think that you have to state your needs. There's so many problems in relationships related to unmet needs, be that sexual or affection or time-wise, whatever that may be. Say that again, Zora, sorry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you there. What I'm just trying to say is how that is communicated. And there is a way of communicating your needs that doesn't sound demanding. And I think it's almost like we have to sort of sit and listen to ourselves sometimes, without it sounding like you're begging or trying to be too accommodating. What am I trying to say? I just think when we talk about our needs, and we all have needs, I think it is a language that we portray when we are trying to express those needs from our significant other, that it doesn't want to, do you know what I'm trying to say? It doesn't mean you don't want to come across as too needy.
No, because heaven forbid if we sound needy, right? Like nobody wants to appear needy. It's not attractive, right? But I think that's where when we talk about being strong, right? This is where things like strength are relevant, because sometimes we think in our culture, oftentimes strong means I can confront and I can talk up for myself, I can argue, but sometimes strong can mean I was kind of vulnerable then, you know. I actually put it out there, how I was feeling, and that could be misperceived or, you know, seen as, but you know, I just really want it. I'm just going to trust myself. I'm going to trust this person that I'm in a safe space. I'm going to say what I need. And that's a level of strength. That's a different level of strength that we don't often talk about in our community, although it does exist and we do talk about it, but not as much in terms of being vulnerable. Vulnerability is a strength. It's like saying, I'm not coping right now, I'm not well right now, or I need to take some time out, as opposed to soldiering on until your body starts, your immune system packs up because you're working too much. Saying, hey, I've got to take a time out, I'm not doing too good. So vulnerability is a strength. It's a strength.
Being vulnerable is an experience that probably many of us aren't familiar with. It's not a comfortable place to be unless you are in a strong relationship. You know, indeed, I have to say,
indeed,
I would find it a little bit tricky, because we all have a suit of armor that we wear to protect ourselves in times of emotional need. And we all sort of put this suit of emotional armor on every day. We do it automatically because we have to deal with the kids, we have to go into work, we have to appear to get on with our colleagues, we have to, you know, be all things to all men. And it's almost like if you let your guard down or someone catches you unaware, to then express your need, to give yourself time to identify what your needs are and then express them, it is a skill. There is an art to it. Does require some practice.
And it is that special person though. So we have all these different people in our lives, but that person that we are connected to in that physical, intimate way, that significant, that's what we say, significant other, because there's lots of people in our life that are important, blood relative, all kind of stuff. But if that's that special person and you're really on a journey together, that's supposed to be a safe space, your safe space, you know? That's supposed to be a safe space. And Finally, I would say get to know your other half's love language. You know, the love languages, Gary Cooper. Chapman, excuse me, Gary Chapman.
I think he was, Gary Cooper was a boxer, wasn't he?
And that was Henry. Oh. What's one Cooper, you know, one Cooper to the next, you know? But yeah, so you know the love language is touch, positive affirmations, acts of service, etc. The 5 love languages, quality time, and gifts. Yeah, so know your partner's love language, your other half's love language, and communicate with them in that love language, and you should be on to a winner. These are some things that you could practice. If you find them helpful, do them more. If they don't work for you, then you can park it. Oh, and one for the fellas, because I do advocate for my guys. I'd say this to the women, to the ladies on the forum. The one thing that your significant other would want to hear from you the most when there's conflict is, it's not all your fault. It's so important for men to hear that when it's going wrong.
Amen.
Hallelujah, my brother. Hallelujah.
Yes. Amen. Preach. Preach.
Teach on that, minister. So yeah, but those are a few tips and pointers. If, like I said, if helpful, then definitely employ them more often than not.
Yeah, brilliant.
May I just ask a question there? Sorry, I just asked the question. I mean, both yourself and Hugh said I may have jumped ship too early. But interestingly enough, do you remember the days when a man would say, well, I ain't taking no woman with no child, I'm not doing this and I'm not doing that? Why is it okay for a man to say that? And I, as a woman, am saying, and this is very early days, we haven't had a date, we're supposed to be having a date. And I'm just looking at, do I really want to invest my time in this situation and be competing with a man with 2 ex-wives that he doesn't get on with and 2 young children that he has every other week? And I'm just like, no, I don't, and that's okay. And I just thought, it's early days, yeah. So before we get into anything, I'll just bow out quietly, and that's okay. I'm not judging him.
And it is okay. It really is okay. It was, I don't know, maybe I'm being naive. I just almost saw idealistically what could, some way down the line, having worked through your challenges, what you see as challenges, because those children are going to grow up. But at the rate that they grow up, by the time they find their independence, you will be significantly older.
Absolutely.
So, you know, where you are now, but if you're as young at heart, you know, people say age is but a number. I had someone come to the house today and call me a liar. I said, why is that? I told him how old I was. And, you know, like you, Mary, I'm the same age as you. I don't feel it. But, you know, if this man was worth investing in and giving him time, those children in a couple of years' time are going to be off his hands.
Yeah.
They'll be teenagers in 4 or 5 years.
They're teenagers now.
They're teenagers now. They're 12, but
12 and what? Did you say 12 and what?
12 and 13.
Well, they're not really. They can't. They're minors in reality.
They're children, but in a few years' time, they're going to be
in a couple of years' time. It's going to go in no time. For some people, it takes that amount of time to get to know somebody. And I'm thinking to myself,
Mary, I think you jumped too quick. I don't.
No, I haven't jumped too quick. I didn't add. Can I just add one element to this that I have left out? This guy's got a very demanding job, and he's the attaché to the mayor of my borough, and he has to be at the beck and call of the councillor and the mayor all the time. And I'm just like, the mayor, the job, the kids, the ex-wife. I thought, hell no, that's not for me.
Right. Okay.
And that's
there's lots of other factors, but on the face of it, when you originally said, you know, what your situation was, I thought, oh, I wonder if there was an opportunity for you to have given the relationship a chance. But yeah, there's lots of other stuff going on.
And
I don't want to run over.
There is no judgment. If a man meets a woman and she's got children, he says, listen, that ain't for me because of the situation. I need this much attention. I know what I need. It's no judgment. And likewise, if a lady says that, that's her choice. It's, you know, we're in our rights. We're in our rights.
Yeah. Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Thank you.
So we have come to the end of our evening, our discussion. So it can look like this in the end, if that's what you're looking for. Relationships are all about give and take. I think in terms of the myths, we've managed to explore some of the influences that are way beyond our control in our communities, in our cultural groups that tend to dictate how we move forward in our relationships. But the world is changing, and who knows who's on the horizon. But I think if you're in a relationship, you ought to, and you want to make it work, consider some of Hugh's tips. They're very valuable. I'll certainly take away a few of those nuggets myself. And I'd like to wish you well, and thank you very much for staying the course of the discussions. Is there anything else you'd like to say, Hugh, before we round off?
Just to say that hopefully we can make the recording available, and the slides if anybody wants the slides. And yeah, I think it was a pretty awesome conversation, and I learned a lot. So it's been a pleasure. Been an absolute pleasure.
And to thank all the guests and your input, Mary and John and Paula. Yeah, hugely valuable, and I really do thank you all. Even those that didn't have the chance to speak up or didn't choose to speak up, thank you for being here and sharing this opportunity with us. So good night all. I don't know who's doing the recording. Someone's doing the recording.
Say it will be made available though. It will be made
right.
available.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Take care, folks.
I'll speak to you shortly. Thank you.
Bye.
Mary, I'll speak to you tomorrow. Marilyn, thank you.
You're most welcome. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night, Pamela. Thanks for coming.